Hey guys, my name's Jonathan Reich. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Louisiana. And because I'm a licensed CPA, I help people with like all kinds of stuff. Like whatever walks through my door, I'm always going to want to be able to lend an ear and just at least offer some advice on. And so that can be anything from taxes to helping figure out what makes the most sense from like an estate standpoint to obviously helping run your business and keeping up with financials. Just anything under the sun, anything I can help with, I try to, you know. That way I can send you a bill. No, I'm just kidding. But I do try and help anybody who needs any help with anything money related. And so um, that's where I excel and that's where I earn my keep. And so part of that is when someone gets into a new situation that they may not be familiar with, I get to weigh in on stuff like that. And this does happen occasionally. Folks will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, I've got this structured settlement that's been coming my way for the last couple of years. I got into an accident, and so now I'm entitled to receive funds, over the next 40 years or for the rest of my life." And I want to go ahead and accelerate collecting those funds because I need to redo my house for accessibility reasons, or I need to take care of an elder who may not be in the best of shape, stuff like that. And so that brings me to today's topics, which are the best places to sell those types of structured settlements. I hate bad deals. I'm a CPA. I hate seeing people get taken advantage of. And so I wanted to talk about these because these companies get a bad rap and they're typically looking to make a buck. Basically, anytime you sell a structured settlement, you're taking a haircut on the funds that you're going to be receiving. A dollar today is not the same dollar 10 years from now. Inflation uh, and typically discount rates, compounding rates, things like that are all going to play into that. And so if I'm receiving $100,000 over the next 5 years, I'm not going to receive $100,000 today. I may receive 75,000 because the companies are going to discount that to the current value of that dollar, and then they need to put a markup in there so that they can make some profit on it, and then make that deal make sense for them. So that's how every single one of these companies that we're going to talk about today operates. Do know that you will always be taking a haircut on that value. 100,000 over those 5 years, you might get 70,000 today. So let's go ahead and jump in to find out who is the best to do business with and maybe who isn't. So this is going to be super high level. A lot of these companies are very similar. The first one I want to start with is Strategic Capital. They've been around since the mid 90s, and they try and differentiate themselves from some of the other players that we're going to talk about, like JG Wentworth, Peachtree Financial, DRB Capital, CBC Settlement, Stern Street Capital, and Liberty Settlement. Those are the ones we're going to talk about today. They try and differentiate themselves a little bit, and I really appreciate that. So the first thing I want to call out is they typically will advise you to educate yourself before you go and sell your settlement funding. I think an educated buyer is one that is going to be able to get the best deal for themselves. It just makes the most sense. You need to understand the process. You need to understand what you're getting yourself into. And they push that approach really, really hard. They're super low pressure based off kind of what I've done my research on. They have a very consultative approach. They want to make sure that it's not boiler room esque, and more so you're talking to someone who wants to investigate if this is in your best interest. And I really like that because, like I said, a lot of these get a bad rap because they try and take advantage of people. And I want to make sure that if I'm representing someone or advising them, that they are getting the best deal possible. That is the ultimate focus point of today's video. Another thing that Strategic Capital does that kind of differentiates themselves that I found is they focus on partial sales. So you may not need the full value of your settlement today to get done what you need to the house or to take care of grandma or whatever have you. You don't have to sell the entire thing. They may only buy a portion of that monthly income, or they only may buy the first 5 years of a 40-year settlement. Whatever you need to get done what you need done. And then, of course, they're going to educate you and kind of walk you through, okay, this is what you can expect. This is how long it's going to take. This is how we talk to the judge. This is time frame, stuff like that. And so they do a really good job of that. Now, some other places that they do really well are that they're going to walk you through how to fill out this paperwork. Whenever you're taking your structured settlement buyout to a judge has to order that it's going to be in your best interest to take that payment, they walk you through how to do the paperwork, which means there's a higher chance of being accepted. And so I thought that was really great that they take the time to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. They work with a network of consultants who are going to help people set up these structured settlements, so they have good referral networks back and forth between the buyout process and actually receiving those structured settlements. So you're not kind of flying blind. Once again, they really pride themselves on educating and like being an ethical choice compared to some of these. And so that's like a really, really big plus to me, because my job is to look out for the public. My job is to make sure you keep the most money in your pocket. My job is to make sure you pay the least amount of taxes legally required. And so when I hear things like this, it really pushes me to believe that this is one of the better companies out there. So one other thing that before I jump into the other guys for the video is they offer advances. It's not necessarily advertised at this time, but if you need a couple $1,000s up front once you start the paperwork, but it may take 60 to 75 days for you to receive those funds. If you're in a pinch, you can talk to them and they can get you the money that you need relatively quickly. So just keep that in mind. Really, really happy with what I have found on these guys, and this is kind of where I would lean if I was advising somebody to, hey, sell that money that you're going to get every time, get it today. This is where I would point them to. All right, let's fly through the other ones because there are a ton of different companies out there. So the next one is JG Wentworth. You've heard it. It's my money. I need it now. That late night jingle. A little bit about JG Wentworth. They've been in the business since the early 90s, so a little bit longer than Strategic Capital. That's one of their only Strategic Capital's drawbacks is they're a little bit younger than maybe some of the other ones out there, but not by much. They have the scale and the brand recognition. They have A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have 5-star ratings in a ton of places. I get mixed reviews whenever I'm doing my research on that though, because they have an A+ rating, but there are, I believe, over 70 reviews on the BBB that say, well, I felt pressure, or maybe I didn't get the best rate, I didn't shop around very well, and they took advantage of me. So they have so many views that they can still maintain that A+ rating, but there are some horror stories out there, so do keep that in mind when shopping around. They do really well in their step-by-step marketing. They're going to tell you exactly what to expect. They're going to outline the process in simple language. They're going to help first-timers understand exactly what they're getting themselves into. They also have a much broader product menu. Much is a strong word. They do offer a broader product menu than Strategic Capital. They can be a one-stop shop. They have structured settlements. They can also do debt resolution, so it can be like a one-stop triage center if you've got several different things going on. In my opinion, and what I've found online, is the pricing and the discount rate can be on the higher side. So just make sure you're shopping around. You're getting apples to apples comparisons. Say, I want to start selling my structured settlements for 5 years starting January 1st, 2026. I want it to cease 12/31. 2031. Here's the dollar value. What can I get for it after all fees, settlement costs, taxes? Make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. JG Wentworth is a good company to do that with because they're national. They have like a wide reach. So they would always be good to inquire a quote with, just to make sure that you're doing your homework and comparing everyone apples to apples. One of the drawbacks, and you're going to find this with Peachtree in just a second, is they definitely have a high volume feel. It's going to be a call center, at least to start out with. It feels very transactional. You're probably not going to get the same level of individualized care, that white glove service that we're always after. So keep that in mind. Peachtree should just be called JG Wentworth V2 because it's owned by JG Wentworth. So they're going to be very much the same. They're going to have a big office type of feel. They do structured and pre-settlement funding, so they're not only going to buy the structured settlements, they also have the ability to receive those funds or give you those funds while a case is still pending. So that is kind of a unique financial offering. They have flexible asset types. So if you also have like lottery winnings or life settlements coming up, you can get multiple payment streams wrapped into one from Peachtree. I necessarily wouldn't advise that as a CPA, because if you're receiving these structured settlements, you're once again taking a big haircut if you are shopping them out and trying to get that money up front. It's just not a good idea long term. It may feel great to have a couple $100,000 in the bank right now, but you may come to regret that in a couple of years once that money is spent. So do think about that. That's why I say an educated buyer is a good buyer, or an educated seller is a good seller. Make sure you're getting what it's worth. Once again, they're going to be like JG Wentworth. They have the process outlined. They're going to be very transparent about how long it takes, how the sale works. They're going to emphasize the need for court approval. So there is some overlap with JG Wentworth. Definitely shop around. Once again, get your apples to apples. I'm starting this date, ending this date. Here's a dollar value. Tell me what it's worth. I'm going to drill that point in several times just because it's that important. The next one I want to talk about is DRB Capital. So they have a very focused product line, similar in my opinion to Strategic Capital, where they pretty much stick to structured settlements and annuities. They're not trying to be a generic finance company. They're not going to offer debt consolidation like JG Wentworth. They're here to basically buy out those structured settlements, make their profit over the course of 5-10 years, get that discount. That's what their niche is. So one thing that they call out is they have fast funding. I don't really agree with that. That's strictly marketing, in my opinion. You're going to find that to be true with a lot of these. Will say, we can get your money fast. JG Wentworth's slogan is, it's my money and I need it now. And so keep that in mind. It's not really true. It's all going to be based on the court approval process. All these companies are going to be well funded. And so as soon as it's approved by the judge, you'll get your money probably within 5 days. And then those payments will be transferred over to the buyer of that structured settlement. So I do like that DRB Capital definitely highlights educational content. They want you to be a good seller, and they want to be a good buyer. They're once again going to outline those processes for court approval, lay out the steps on how to sell the settlement. They're not necessarily going to educate you as much as Strategic Capital would, but some is better than none in my opinion. So they also pitch competitive rates. What I've found online is they're somewhere in between. They may not give you the most money, but they're not going to be on the higher side like some of the national chains out there. One thing I don't like about them is they prioritize that get your cash now type voice of marketing. And so to me, that says, hey, I'm going to be a little high pressure. They want you to be educated, but they also want to close the deal with you, and so keep that in mind. Once again, shop around, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, compare everybody, get that apples to apples quick. This one's neat. I'm going to talk to you about this in a second. This is CBC Settlement Funding. They're long-standing. They're a leader in the secondary market. They've been around for quite some time. They also explain how the process works. And so they lean in on you being an educated buyer. But one thing that sets them apart is this cash advance within 24 to 72 hours. Once again, kind of like Strategic Capital, if you're in a pinch, they can help you out of it, but you need to start your paperwork and actually show that, hey, I'm serious about this. They're not just going to hand you $5,000, so don't start coming up with harebrained schemes to try and get that. You need to be a legitimate seller who's actually interested. But that always comes with a caveat. If you take that cash advance up front, they're going to say, hey, you really owe us to sell this. There may be strings and stipulations attached. So that makes it much harder for you to shop around and get the full dollar value of your structured settlement. So be very weary of when you take a cash advance. This is a great option. I really like this option, but you need to make sure that it doesn't come with any strings attached. And if needed, let's say CBC gives you a worse deal, can you just refund that and then go with the structured settlement payer who's going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars more? Keep that in mind. There's always something. There's always a gotcha. So be on the lookout for that. That's why I'm having this conversation, to make sure that you don't get the short end of the stick. But that is a unique offering. If they do have the best price for your structural settlement and they can give it to you quick because you're in a pinch, definitely consider them. So they do have those standard marketing claims: get your money now, maximum value, immediate financial relief. I don't necessarily love those. That's that high pressure sales pitch to me. Not a fan, but that's okay. Everyone's got their niche. So Stone Street Capital, they have a very long track record. They've been in business since the late 1980s. This is one of the more famous ones, kind of like JG Wentworth, in my opinion. So they have that long-standing track record, which means, they know what they're doing. They've been around for a while. They've been around the block. So that speaks well to me, because typically if you run a crappy business, you're not going to be in business very long. So they have to be doing something right. They also have customer-centric messaging, clear explanations. They're going to highlight, support is going to be available to you. And then they can get you the funding pretty quickly because they are a big player in the space. And then they do structured settlements, annuities. They have a little bit broader portfolio than some of the other ones we've talked about: lawsuit settlement, life insurance, personal injury settlement, stuff like that. So um, it is nice that they have a broader portfolio if you do have some type of other structured settlement coming into your household income. So one thing I don't like about Stone Street Capital is they are very heavy into advertising. That's why I've heard of them. And to me, if you're spending a ton of money on marketing, you're going to have a higher overhead expense, which means you're probably not giving out the best deal. You got to pay for that marketing somewhere. You got to make up the money. You got to make up the difference. All these businesses need to run at a certain profit margin for it to make sense. If you're paying for marketing, that's money that's coming out of your customers' pockets. That's just how it works in my brain. I don't know if it's necessarily true, but that money comes from somewhere. So the last one I want to talk about today is Liberty Settlement Funding. So I like them because they're very similar to Strategic Capital in that they offer partial sales. So they don't have to buy the whole thing. You can sell 5 years of a 40-year term, or just like Strategic Capital, maybe you're receiving $1,000 a week and you only need to sell $400 of that $1,000 a week for the next 5 years. So you still get some structured settlement and you get your cash up front. So that is a nice, flexibility offering in my opinion. So that's something that Liberty offers. So does Strategic Capital. They have an experienced team. They mentioned decades of combined experience in the space. And then their marketing is not as, it's my money, I need it now. They have more of an empathetic, like right here, it says, we're here to help you get your money. So they have a very empathetic marketing. Once again, still not a big fan of the marketing, but it's nicer to hear, get your money. It's your cash. You need it now. Like it says, hey, we're here to give you a hand. So I like that. Their discount rate is going to be kind of in the mid-range for the market. So keep that in mind. But they also don't have emphasis on don't sell. So they want to close the deal. They want to make the deal with you. They're not going to try and educate you maybe as much as some of the other ones that I've mentioned. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with using any of these companies. But like I said, I want to drill home that you need to call every single one of these companies on this list and find out who's going to give you the most money for what you're selling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what their marketing is. If they give you a cash advance, it's protect yourself. You need to watch out for yourself. Don't worry about these companies. They have hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal. Somebody will come along and sell their structured settlement. It just doesn't have to be you if you're not getting the best deal. Shop around, shop around, shop around. Make sure you check your discount rate, your total payout, and then compare all the offers on the table. Line them up on your desk and say, okay, this one's going to give me this much for this term. And then pick the highest one. Run an Excel spreadsheet if you're into that. Or go see a CPA who can help do it for you. Make sure you're talking to your CPA. Make sure you're talking to your lawyer. Make sure you're talking to a doctor who says, hey, this is necessary. You need the money in order to make these improvements for your house. Things like that. Like, definitely consult with people. There's a lot of money on the line and you don't want it to slip through your fingers. And that is why I like saying an educated seller is a good seller. And these companies that really preach that are the ones that I feel the best about recommending. So anyway, guys, I hope that you've kind of seen some of the bigger players in the space and you can kind of say, okay, these are who I should call, these are who I should avoid, and that you enjoyed the video and the content today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.